And we're live. I will send out a message to the Discord. Live out now. I'm going to pull up sort of the, shitty notes I took for the video. So I figured we'd talk about general week one, some of the chalk with like the Bengals and tight end and running back situation. And just give a few picks for like quarterback, receivers, teams we want to target, stuff like that.
Yep, that works.
Teams you want to target, Vegas totals, all that good stuff. Yeah, we'll let people filter in. All right. Yeah, I think we're good. Might adjust audio a little bit, but I think overall we're sitting pretty. I probably should pull up YouTube though and see once we get viewers pouring in. Oh, we got 7. Perfect. So, hello, welcome everybody to the show. First show Blaine and I are doing together, which is exciting. It's sort of been one or the other up until now.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about NFL this week. I've got a sim pull up and ready, but before that, I think we're going to talk just a little bit about the general slate, game environments, team totals, some of the chalk we've got at receiver and tight end and running back. So yeah, I mean, starting out, Blaine, if I pull up AceMind here, if I go back, we can look at our team totals. We've got a lot of games sort of in the upper 40s this week. And we saw on Thursday and Friday that both of those games went over their Vegas totals, which is interesting to see.
Yep.
So it might be a function of, the new kickbacks we're getting this year or just outliers, but we got quite a few games scheduled for these high 40s totals, so good passing environments. Are there any teams standing out to you that you're going to want to target this week?
Well, the Houston Colts game is like the premium game to target with the Houston's passing attack. Gus Stroud, Tank Dell's back, and Nico Collins. And then the Colts. I don't really love Richardson. Like Richardson looks interesting long term. Short term as a passer, there's a lot to be desired, but you can't deny that they have premium skill position players with Taylor and Pittman and Downs. If Downs going to play, I think Downs is going to be really good. I don't know if he's playing this week.
Yeah, the Colts were a fun team to target last year when Richardson was healthy. It seemed like they always were able to stay in games. They had good passing volume, and they spread the targets out. Well, I mean, mostly to Pittman, but they were kind of rotating through a series of tight ends towards the end of the season there that, you can pick any one of these guys, and they're liable to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
One thing I was looking at earlier this week were the DraftKings Sportsbook odds for the most passing yards for the week. And up top at number 1 was actually CJ Stroud. So DraftKings had them as the shortest odds for a QB for longest passing yards. So that's a spot I'm trying to get active in, especially with the receiving core. I mean, there's plenty of games, if you look back last year, where CJ is throwing 3-4 touchdowns, over 300 yards a game. Obviously, Tank Dell and Steph Diggs are great receivers. Nico Collins had a ton of good games last year, and then they're kind of rotating through their 2 tight ends with Schultz and Brevin Jordan. But that's a spot that I'm trying to get overweight in this week for sure, just given the team total, the spread, and then also the odds for CJ of getting a lot of passing yards.
Yep, that makes sense to me. It should be a fun game to watch. I mean, as fun as the AFC South can be. I think there's going to be points there.
Yep. It's going to be a good game. I think that's a good spot to target on both sides, honestly, if you're looking for receivers or quarterbacks to play. Richardson, great rushing upside. Receiving core on both sides is just ripe with, I mean, pricing this week is already pretty loose, but you'll have no problems getting like a QB plus 2 or 3 from either of these sides on this game.
Yeah.
One thing we should probably chat about is the Cincinnati receiving news we've kind of had over the last 24 hours as far as, Jamar and T. It seems like we have pretty obvious value coming into week 1 on the Bengals side. Andre Yoshivas, he played quite a few games last year as a wide receiver 3, especially when Jamar was going through that injury. But I mean, coming in this week, if neither of those guys play, Yandre Yoshivas at the bare min at wide receiver, 3K flat for a team that likes to pass a lot. They're going up against the Patriots, an easy team to attack through the air. I mean, why not target a 3K receiver who's targeted or projected for 10, 12 targets a game? Like, to me, that seems like a really easy way to save money this week. I think a lot of people are going to do that, so you'll see a lot of ownership sort of funnel to the stars and scrubs builds where we got Yoshivas, bare min at the receiver. It's basically a plug and play. Allows you to get to Tyreek Hill, allows you to get to a lot of these high-priced running backs. So expect to see a lot of that this week where people are playing Andre Yoshivas with at least one of Tyreek Hill, if not, some of these running backs that are higher priced.
Yep. Although, I mean, I will say for the first slate of the year usually has the softest pricing. Just because the salary's been up for so long. I mean, $3K for Yoshivas or just spending $1,000 more and getting Odunze. There's question marks on how much he's going to be used, but he's a premium talent compared to Yoshivas.
Exactly. Like, I mean, the Bears in general, I think, are going to be a good passing target, receiving target to go after this year. And there's going to be an ownership consideration there where, like you said, you've got Yoshivas who's probably like high 30s, low 40s in ownership just because of the late news. Everybody knows about it. He's in a great spot as far as being a min-price receiver that comes into a number one role. But like you said, like Rome Odunze, you got the Bears just sitting right there. You got a player who's probably a 30th of the ownership, if not maybe a little more. But there's these plays you kind of have to consider in high field GPP where either of those receivers, they're both live to score the same range of outcomes. There's no reason that Yoshivas is the better play over Odunze, but that's a decision you kind of got to make in lineups.
Yeah. What do you think about Jacksonville, Miami? I think that's still the highest total of the week.
Yep. I mean, it's obviously a great spot for both sides of the field, I think. Like Tyreek Hill, plenty of games last year where he's just scoring 35 plus, and it just seems like the Dolphins are unable to be stopped. There was that one game last year where they scored, was it like 70 plus points? And it was like,
against Denver in week 2 or 3. Like really early in the
so
year.
It's obviously a team that will put up points on the board. They're not a team that kind of like the Chiefs where they're not going to take the foot off their gas at all. Like they're going to keep passing the ball and pushing the ball down the field. I mean, I like targeting the running backs in that game. I like targeting the receivers in that game. It's pretty clear that like Tyreek Hill, he's the most expensive on the slate, isn't he, as far as receivers go?
I believe so, yeah.
Or CD, yeah. So, I mean, Tyreek Hill right below CeeDee Lamb in terms of pricing, but, I mean, a higher ceiling for sure. I think a higher median as well. That team is just a team you want to target, especially in these early games. You can play pretty much anybody you want from the Dolphins, quite frankly. Like, you can pair Tua with Tyreek and Devon A-Chain. Like, there's plenty of games that they played last year together, and they both have hit GPP winning scores. It's just a spot you want to be, quite frankly.
Who are you bringing back with then if you're stacking like A-Chain and Hill and Tua? Who are you bringing, like Brian Thomas Jr. for cheap-ish? He's only
if you're sort of playing the idea that this game is going to be a shootout, play closer than the spread implies, place to the total, you're going to want players. I mean, I don't hate Travis Etienne on the bring back. One, because you get the rushing upside, but two, he's also a pass catching back where if they're playing on third downs or playing from behind, he'll get plenty of looks in the backfield as far as passing goes. And DK being a full PPR site, you're going to want to target that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to go cheaper, I like Brian Thomas Jr. for sure. New guy on the block, plenty of opportunities. He's a guy that you can really use to kind of alleviate salary, and he's not going to have a whole ton of ownership coming with him. But on top of that, I like Kirk and Ingram, I think, the most from the Jacksonville side for pass catchers. Volume is going to be there, especially if they're playing from behind. Evan Ingram last year has had tons of work, especially in the 20s. I think both of those guys are totally live to be good bringbacks for a Dolphin stack.
Kirk is so frustrating. Just a classic boomer bust receiver.
Yeah, and it depends on the contest you're playing, but if you're playing any field that's kind of large, Kirk's a great receiver who's like, you know what, he can score me 4 points in this game, or he might score me 40. It's sort of, you don't know what you're going to get.
Yep. I did have a lineup that floated. It was like it plays. I was simming the $100 milli on DraftKings, and there was a Miami onslaught with no bringbacks that looked pretty interesting.
I mean, I can see that too. That's kind of a
Straight
thing I
beat
think is
down.
underrepresented as far as playing lineups goes, is everybody's taking a bring back on the other side, whether it's one or two or whatever. There's not enough teams or not enough people playing for that blowout scenario where one team scores 40 and the other team doesn't score anything.
Yeah, it was Tua, A-Chain, Waddle, and Hill.
Yep.
And then playing some of the cheaper players from the NFC South games with lower totals.
Yeah, I think if you're going that route, as far as like playing like an onslaught stack, I love playing the QB and the running back and a pass catcher.
Yep. Especially if the running back is getting at targets.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that sort of lineup construction won last year when the Dolphins were playing and scored that big game, and like I think a couple other games as well where it was Tua, Achane, and one of Tyreek Hill or Waddle.
Yeah.
Should we go ahead and take a look at the sim I ran here?
Yeah, I wanted to say one other game that I really like that's definitely contrarian because it's a low total is that Washington Tampa game.
Yeah.
Because you have Jake Daniels has so much fantasy point scoring upside, and McLaurin's like an elite skill position player. You can pair with them easily. I know my projections are a little higher on that game than it seems like the industry is, but I'm very interested in that one from a betting perspective, and from I think that you could have a game where you get Jaden Daniels and McLaurin and somebody bring back like Evans from Tampa, or I know Rashad White's pretty popular, but like Evans at 7% owned in a stack of Daniels and McLaurin is very interesting to me.
Yeah, I think the passing matchup on both sides is, pretty much a cakewalk. There were a lot of games last year when the Eagles were in form and they played the Commanders where those games were going like 34-34 apiece, really tight games with a lot of air attack stuff. I definitely like that as like a sneaky play if you're playing, these really high entry fields. Yeah, I mean, McLaurin's never a bad GPP roster, like ever. I don't think it's he's got the speed, he's got that downfield.
He finally has an elite downfield passing quarterback. Like sort of Daniel was at LSU.
And that's sort of where he shines, right? Like a lot of his fantasy outcomes last year, I mean, he's always that perimeter downfield receiver, and he's either scoring you a ton of points or not a lot at all, which is kind of what you'll want in a GPP. So I definitely like that field or that game as far as attacking for fantasy. Another game I thought was, like a little bit interesting, if you want to get like super kind of weird, is the Giants game.
Yeah, yep. That also, that's Justin Jefferson's one of my favorite plays of the week. Also at no ownership.
Yeah,
I mean, Giants secondary is so cooked in my. I think Darnold. You know what's funny about Darnold when McCarthy got hurt? Darnold. I mean, obviously a lot of it is just because that he's the starter now. But Kevin McConnell's offense is so friendly for quarterbacks. Darnold's odds to be the highest or the quarterback with the most passing yards dropped like. It went from like 150 to 1 to like 20 to 1 in one day.
Yeah. And the people that are wanting to play these plays like Diggs or Hill or anybody, like a lot of them aren't wanting to do it with their quarterback. They're kind of playing them as one-offs. Yeah. And it's like, if you're going to play these guys and expect them to get a high fantasy point outcome, why not pair them with their quarterbacks that are low owned? We've got a lot of chalk quarterbacks this week, or not chalk, but a lot of higher owned quarterbacks. So why not play the guys you already want to play, but pair them with a quarterback that's, half as owned as some of the more popular ones. And that would be like Darnold, Tua. So.
Yep. I got nothing to add.
Yeah. So let's go and, finally loaded. We can take a look at this sim that I just ran. Default projections, sort of default stats. Kind of look at what bubbles to the top here and see sort of what looks good, what doesn't look good.
There's another Dolphins onslaught.
Yeah.
Kind of the same. Yeah.
They're loving the Dolphins, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much upside.
It's hard to, you look at last season and there's so many games. If Tua's healthy and the receivers are healthy and they're playing at home, like it's who's stopping them.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you look up top, I do see a lot of Tua. We got a Tua RB wide receiver combo here. Again, down lower, this is a Tua with two receivers. I bet we see a ton of Andre as just kind of like a last person in. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, it definitely looks like that stars and scrubs week where you can spend up at receiver, spend up at running back, spend up wherever you want, and you can plug in Yoshivas as a min salary receiver, and you get tons of salary relief. You can play anybody you want.
I wonder what kind of score he needs to be optimal in. I mean, not necessarily optimal, but in the winning lineup. Some of these large PPs.
I mean, I don't think it needs to be much. Like I remember last week there was a year where who was it that won a milli with a 0 with the snowflake?
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah,
might have been Yuta, but he won the milli last year, solo shipped with a snowflake with a 0. And like that's kind of a scenario every week where like, especially at 3K, you need to score like, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 points to be viable. Like that's 3K salary, 4K salary. Like that's plenty for a 3K receiver, and you're betting on your other guys that you're spending money on to hit their upside. So
yeah.
One name this week that I'm not seeing a ton of up top in the Sims, but I think it's going to be kind of like a popular play is Rachaad White.
Yeah, I think I'm projected like at 22% on.
Yeah, so I mean, I think he's a guy that people are going to want to turn to for safety reasons. But like, I'm not sold on the Tampa Bay offense as far as like new coordinator. They've got new talent in the backfield. Obviously, they're a good rushing team, and they're probably going to be playing from ahead. But Rachaad White, it's not somebody I want to roster as much as the field is.
Yeah, not in large field. In cash or like smaller single entry stuff, I mean, it makes sense just to play him with Kamara and then just get different with your quarterback receiver stack. Yep. But large field, it's not that interested in Rachaad White unless I'm running some kind of Daniels McLaurin stack with him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Kamara is another interesting talk where obviously he's a guy on DraftKings where like if he's getting those 12 targets a game, he's a no-brainer click. Like those PPR points are insane. He's getting so many targets midfield, out of the backfield, third downs, whatever. Like he's getting all of those targets for the team. Tons of midfield wheel route type, catches. But like I went back and looked at his game logs, and I know it's like game log watching, but I think out of like the number of starts he had last year, like 10, 11, 12 or whatever, there was like maybe 2 or 3 games where he actually got you a fantasy score that you wanted to play. And obviously it's a new year, week 1. We don't know like what the offensive scheme is going to look like, but you're really relying on PPR targets in Kamara. And there was that one game last year where he scored 4 touchdowns. Like you need a lot out of him, honestly, to pay off his tag. And depending on his ownership, that's an area I might want to come in under on.
Yep, I'm with you there. Got nothing to add.
Yeah, as far as like pass catching goes and stacks, we kind of want to target. If we see what bubbles up top here, I mean, obviously we saw a lot of Miami, Houston, a lot of big Houston stacks, Minnesota with Jefferson, Jacksonville in that Miami game as a bring back. If they're playing from behind, there's a good chance that they're going to be throwing the ball a ton. I mean, this is all kind of stuff I envisioned we'd see up top. High game total environments, good receiving options. Yeah.
Yep. Man, that Minnesota game really is kind of popping.
Yeah. So if we look at some of these, Sam Darnold, and Darnold. You can see in a lot of these we're taking Jefferson and stuffing Yoshivas in there as a salary saver, but I mean there's also like some Johnny Munt creeping in. There's it's kind of that thing where like you can get different there if you want to, but I think Sam Darnold's coming in low owned enough where you just play him and Justin Jefferson and maybe another pass catcher if you want, and you can kind of feel free to do whatever you want with the rest of the lineup and not really fear of being duped too many times.
Yep, especially if you brought it back with anyone on New York, because they're just not going to get any ownership.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a great environment to target. Like neither defense is really that great. They can give up big, huge chunk plays, and there's good options on both sides.
Yep, I agree. I mean, the only real concern is Minnesota's offensive line. I think they rebuilt it this offseason, and the Giants is like the one strength they have is Thibodeau basically on defense. So
yeah, getting to the passer for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, assuming if the offensive line can hold up, Jefferson and Addison should be able to get open against the Giants secondary. But
I love them this week if they're carrying the ownership they are against like Tyreek Hill, who's going to be way more popular. I'm totally willing to get there.
Yep.
Because of how soft pricing is and a 3K option that will be popular, what lineup scoring weights would you recommend where ownership is important? So if I go pop back into the Sims here, I'll kind of show you what he's talking about as far as in our new Sim tool, we have these lineup scoring weights where instead of ordering the lineups by ROI or fantasy points, what you can do is you can set a custom scoring weight. And I think if you want to factor ownership into there, one of the best ways to do that is in the ownership tab. We got this new ownership metric called geomean. I don't know if you want to touch on that, John, but kind of explain like what geometric means as far as like number of lineups in the field and what that number means relative to a lineup.
Yeah, the shorthand is like you can take the geomean. You basically are taking the logs of exponents of each ownership number, and then you can take that to the power 1 over however many players are in the lineup, and then multiply it by the field size, and that'll get you the number of duplicates you can expect to see for that lineup. I know I said that kind of fast, but it's just it's a better shorthand way of seeing your relative uniqueness without having to look at like ownership product when you get a bunch of leading zeros.
Yeah, so it's a more accurate way and a more easy way to look at how likely a lineup is to be duped in a contest relative to like if you look at ownership product, that's pretty good, but it's not great, and it's a really small decimal and it's kind of hard to parse. Whereas geomean sort of normalizes those values and it gives you a better look at what that lineup is relative to how many lineups are in a contest.
Yeah, what geomean range is good for the NFL Lotto? I mean, it depends what you consider good, what your goal is. Like if you're trying to get unique, we can kind of estimate what number would be like you're guaranteed to have a unique lineup. But I wouldn't. I mean, the thing about like the Lotto, I mean, I guess some of the super large DraftKings one this week, it's going to be hard. I mean, even with that many possible lineups, it's going to be hard to be unique and have a good lineup. But I think in general with these NFL Classic slates, I don't worry too much about the ownership on those.
Yeah, looking at the top Sims here, we're kind of in the geo range of like 0.06, 0.08 to like the 0.03 or 0.13 and 0.14. So like around there, I think this is the $100 lotto, the 27,000 entry. So if you're playing that smaller lotto, that's like 900,000 people, or whatever, you're probably going to be under that. But depending on your roster construction, like the type of stacks you're playing and the quarterback you're playing, there's in the salary you're using, there's different ways to get different and unique on a slate than just raw ownership. And I think we saw that the past few nights for like, Isaiah Likely captain, and it was a 2-4 Baltimore stack where he played captain and Lamar, but then 4 flex were the other team. And it's like, there's ways to get different as far as the people you're playing, but you also have to think about the stack you're playing, the amount of salary you're using, and like your overall like stack as far as like QB, pass catcher, running back.
Yeah.
So.
And duplicates matter more the smaller the number of combinations for lineups. So that's like really important for showdown and MMA, and the smaller the contest size, right? So I just wouldn't like for these lottos. I really wouldn't. I'm not too concerned about. I mean, there's like an infinite number of combinations of lineups you can make, and so I'm much more looking at ROI and win percentage this week than for these large field contests than I am for geomean.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I just posted this sheet in the chat, so if you guys want to look at it, look through your lineups, filter them down to sort of what you want to see. Like, for example, if you're big on that Houston game this week, you could come make your own copy and filter these primary stacks down to Houston stacks. So we can look at Houston like 2, 3s, and 4s. And then up top, we've got all of our CJ Stroud lineups. Looks like he's pretty popular as far as like pass catching options. We've got Schultz, Collins, Dell, Brian Thomas. I mean, some of these players, like I think for the most part, you don't want to target like the number 1 and number 2 wide receivers, but getting a tight end in there is probably fine. Some of them with the defense as well, playing that sort of onslaught one-sided game. Yeah. This is our large field sim. What else can we talk about on the slate? I do want to take a look at ownership just as a whole.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
So we go back.
So Tyreek leading the way on DraftKings. I'll have by the way, I'll have another production update. Probably not tonight, probably tomorrow morning before the slate, like an hour and a half before the slate, once we get all the inactives.
Yeah.
So these are probably going to change a little bit, but I don't expect too much.
OA asks, since time usually isn't a big factor for the NFL, is more generations generally better for the Sims? Yeah, I would say so. So the way generations work in the Sims, I can kind of let Jung expand on this, but you're running, instead of running one Sim 50,000 times, you're running that Sim, saving a chunk of those good performing lineups and breaking them into another Sim. And the number of times you do that is the number of generations.
Yep. So it's kind of like a genetic algorithm, if you've ever heard of that. So all we're doing is we're just keeping the best performers between fields and then just seeing how they perform over and over. Because like a common problem you'd see in small slates or in showdowns is one lineup sims really well in one sim, and that's just because that time the lineup generator or whoever was projecting the contest field didn't think there were going to be any duplicates of that lineup. Where if you were actually to recreate that field over and over again, you might actually expect to see more duplicates for that lineup. And so over time you'd see the ROIs kind of converge to where they should on average versus just running one sim and calling it a day.
Yeah, definitely. So I've loaded ETR into the sim here. Looking at ownership, we got Andre Yoshivas up top, pretty obviously, like 35% in large field. I wouldn't be shocked if we got over that. I mean, being a min-price receiver and a good passing offense, you're going to get a lot of ownership funneling that way with no Jamar, no T. Higgins. He's going to be the number 1 go-to guy on the offense for pass catching.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yoshivas, for a 10-point favorite, Yoshivas is the the target monster. That's unbelievable.
Uh-huh. And like you said, like there's plenty of ways to get around playing Yoshivas. There's receivers down there in the 3K range that you can play, but also you can go more instead of stars and scrubs. There's plenty of receivers in like the 5 and 6K range that you can play that are kind of underpriced, and you can target that more balanced build and get different in that way where you can spend a ton of salary. You can play kind of chalk stuff, but if you're not playing like Tyreek Hill and Yoshivas or CeeDee Lamb and Yoshivas or like a really high price guy and Yoshivas, like you can get different that way for sure.
Yeah, I think my hottest take of the slate is just going to be if Yoshivas is really going to be 40% owned on this slate, I just wouldn't play any in large field and hope for the best.
Yeah, like if he gets a 9, is that going to win you a tournament? No.
Yeah.
Is it going to kill you? No. But like, there's totally ways to beat that score on.
Yeah, and it's such a big slate.
It's a huge slate. Pricing soft across the board. Like you don't have to go and reach for this guy.
Yeah. What I like for using our tool, what I would do is just leave his field projection alone and turn his DK projection down to like a bust for him would be like 5 or 6 points.
Yeah, 10 points is a pretty healthy projection for a 3K guy. He's already projecting for over 3 times salary and value. Like that's he's gonna wind up in a lot of lineups if you leave him there, which not a terrible play if you're playing like small field or medium field stuff. Totally like roster him, you gotta. But if you're playing the Millie, totally a place I would get different in for sure.
Yep.
Let's talk about running back. We got like Rashad White, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker. Some pretty good plays. I mean, you can play them. They're fine. Running backs are sort of not as important as your receivers on DraftKings, given the scoring. But, I mean, a guy like Rashad White, he's got that workload you want from a running back for sure as far as, like, number of touches a game. Totally fine there. I don't hate it. He's not a guy that I'm like, oh, he's 25, 30%. Sure, I'll play a ton of him. It's just kind of an okay option.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that like 5 of the 4 of the 5 highest owned players are going to be from the NFC South, at least running backs. Because White, Kamara, Bijan, and Chuba all are going to get ownership.
Yep. How about that Steelers game? We might have a new starter for the Steelers.
Yeah. Is Justin Fields really the starter now? Does that have to reproject that game?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, ETR has him as the starter. I think it's going to be Justin Fields. So, I mean, a little bit of hope for that offense. Maybe that game environment if you're targeting either side. I think a lot of people are high on the Falcons this year, which is fine. You got good options there. I don't know if it's, a comeback year for Mr. Tight End there, but it's something you could think about if you want to like target that game environment and say like maybe people are underestimating the ability of the Steelers to keep up with the Falcons. But
yeah, I mean, the Falcons skill position players are already getting ownership. Like this game's going to be a shootout. So unless I was stacking Steelers or bringing back with Najee or Jalen Warren or whoever, I'm just not sure how interested I'm going to be playing into a popular Atlanta offense that we haven't seen Kirk Cousins in a year, coming off an Achilles. I don't know. I'm just not. And it's Steelers defense historically is pretty good. TJ Watt should be healthy, I think. So.
Oh, I asked what happened to Russ. Is he washed or just hurt? A little both. A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Maybe the Steelers wised up and took, the slightest hint at injury as an opportunity to sit Russ down and let Fields take over. But yeah, it looks like Fields is going to be the guy going into week 1. And like you said, like ownership's not low on like Pitts, London, Bijan. So, this is a place people are kind of already getting at. If you wanted to get different, maybe you target the other side. Ownership in there is like the single digits as far as like Fields and Pickens goes. Yeah. Maybe you take Najee, hoping for like a high rushing volume, goal line work type of guy, which I could see the Steelers going with. They like to dink and dunk and they get close and then run the ball for 3 downs. They're kind of like, the Iowa football team.
Yeah. Yep, pretty much. I mean, Justin Fields definitely raises the upside for all the skill position players and the Atlanta defense as well, probably because he's not immune to turnovers.
No, I'm totally with you there. Like, obviously, Justin Fields can move the ball, but he's also kind of reckless with it. The Falcons aren't a terrible defensive team. Like, I think last year they had quite a few games where they're getting a few pick sixes, and with Justin Fields behind under center, like anything's really possible. As far as defenses go, I mean, like, who knows? Roll the dice, flip a coin, whatever you want.
Yep, pretty much. Any other games you want to talk about? I like none of the totals outside of like the games we've already discussed are so low.
Yeah,
there's that the Arizona Buffalo I think is going to get ownership or some ownership. This is 47 total. If you think Kyler and Arizona can hang in there, I mean, you got premium skill position players, at least on the Arizona side. It's kind of the weird thing about Buffalo this year, I guess, is you got Josh Allen, who's just an amazing quarterback play every week. And then, like, I don't know who I want to roster on that team otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard ask to roster, like, Buffalo skill position players. I remember last year it was when I rostered, like, players like Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts. It's sort of like I'm totally fine if these players end up in my lineups with nobody stacked with them. Mm-hmm. So they have rushing upside, they have rushing touchdown upside, and they spread the ball out enough where even if Josh Allen does throw 3 touchdown passes, it could be to 3 different receivers, and they all get 7 fantasy points, and that's it. That's all they get.
Yeah, and poor James Cook just gets vultured.
Yeah,
and they get in the red zone.
Yep. I guess to end it off, let's each pick a game environment we like, and then pick a quarterback and a receiver from that environment. That sounds good to you?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of already gave it away. That Washington Tampa game is the one I'm going to be targeting. I love the Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin stack with either Godwin or Evans coming back on Tampa. You fade Rachaad White and hope that. I mean, Evans is probably my favorite of that because he's right up for the same price as Rachaad White, and he's 1/4 the ownership. and he has as much upside as any receiver in the league, as we've seen.
I love that call. Yeah. That's a good way to get different too, is if there's a high chalk receiver or a high chalk running back, people are going to be playing him, just play the other side of the ball. Like chalk running back, just take the receivers and the quarterback. You're getting tons of leverage that way. So I really like that. I like that game environment too. It's a good one to target, tight spread. Another tight spread game that I'm going to be targeting this week a ton, I think a lot of people are too, but I'm going to find ways to get different, is the Texans-Colts game. Tons of passing volume on both sides from both C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson. There's high upsides for both quarterbacks. You got Pittman, Dell, Collins. There's tons of options on both sides of the ball that you can play. And I think there's enough low-owned combinations in there that you can really get different and play that lineup. So that's going to be an area I'm targeting. OAS favorite under 10% owned. I think that's a pretty good call. So I pull up ownership. Here's where the 10 start. I might have to go. I mean, Justin Jefferson is sitting at 7%, sub 10% for one of the best receivers in the league, if not like the best. Good environment. I would totally take Justin Jefferson at 7%. I'm going to make sure I get him in lineups over that number. You want to take a stab at somebody under 10 here?
I was muted. Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say Jefferson's my favorite of all these players under 10% this week, but I'll say Mike Evans to go with the Washington-Tampa thing.
Yeah, for sure. And Evans is a guy, like, if any week he puts up 3 touchdowns and 100 yards, nobody blinks an eye.
Yep.
That's in his wheelhouse.
Lemons made a good point in the chat. I don't know if you saw that, but Bucky Irving, yeah, I think that's another thing is Rachaad White might have his touches limited a little bit because Bucky Irving's a college football DFS legend.
Yeah.
He was really good at Oregon. So, and he looked good in preseason.
They got a new OC. Who knows what the scheme's going to look like? He's got rookie competition in the backfield. Like, this guy's coming in rostered like he's going to get 30 touches in the game. And for one, it's week 1. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And like you said, too, there's fresh meat in the backfield that they're going to want to give touches to. And it could be a situation like we've seen in Showdown the past few nights where, everybody thought, oh, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, maybe they're splitting snaps. Maybe it's 60-40 Andrews. And what happens, it's likely 80-20,
Yeah.
So I think kind of safe to say that, like, whatever's chalked this week, probably okay, but really think about how much people know and how much they're overestimating coming into week 1.
Yeah.
Like Tyreek Hill, probably okay chalk. We know what his role is in the offense. You're not going to not throw the ball to Tyreek, but guys like Rachaad White, like, think about it. Are there paths where this guy doesn't succeed? And if so, what do those paths look like? And those are paths that you can target for getting unique and getting leverage off the field.
Yep. Evans 4 touchdowns in the red zone. That's one way. That'd be the way I hope it happens.
Exactly. Like, they're on the 10-yard line. It's a fade to Evans in the corner. Would you be shocked to see that? No, nobody would.
Mm-mm.
Any other questions in the chat you guys want answered or things you want us to look at before we head on out of here and start building lineups? Oh, my God. I just looked at the score at the Cyclone Hawks game.
Oh, you did?
2019. Let's go, baby. Roll clones.
Roll clones.
Beat State. Woo, or beat Iowa.
These don't play until 7:30 or 7:30 Pacific tonight. They're on late.
Who are they playing?
San Diego State.
Ooh. We'll have to take a look at that. All righty. Well, it doesn't look like we've got anything left on the agenda. Yeah, go clones. Good luck tomorrow, guys. We've had, honestly, for the first 2 games of the slate, we've had incredible outcomes. 2 lineups that would have been number 1, in the millie. I think that's great.
Yep. 2 for 2. Let's make it 3 for 3 tomorrow.
Make it 3 for 3 tomorrow, guys. All right. That's it for us. Hope you enjoyed the show. Maybe see you tomorrow for the Monday game.
Yeah, or Sunday night.
Sunday night too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think we should do a Monday for the Monday Night Football. That'd be fun. Giants too. Or Niners too.
Yeah, Niners Jets.
Yeah.
All righty, guys. Take care. Good luck in building, and we'll see you later.
See ya.